Hey guys, George Mesa, Third Eye Edify podcast. And boy, has it felt like an eternity since I've pressed the record button and faced you, my wonderful audience, which at this moment, of course, is just my camera. It's almost been exactly 2 years. In 1 month from yesterday, it's going to be 2 years of this broadcast. And between my short episodes and my long episodes, it's almost been 100 episodes. And if you count interviews I've had that I've been on other shows, it's more than that. And you can find all that stuff at Patreon. And anyone that's supporting knows all this, but I have much, much more to discuss today regarding where things are going and where they've been. And if you've watched all of my episodes, you know that I've had 2 episodes called Heart to Hearts. And as the thumbnail implies, this is now the 3rd Heart to Heart. And I want to start with this Heart to Heart by saying thank you so much to all of you for hanging out with me, for asking me questions about the books I put up here. It lets me know that my intention is going in the right direction. And a big, humongous thank you to everybody on my Patreon supporters. It's a really big deal. And I hope that you're finding as much value in the exclusives that you had in my other free content. And there's plenty more where that came from, of course. This is nowhere near stopping. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. And it's the same reason, as I said in my very first Heart to Heart, I have to do this. I have to. There's so much going on. I feel that there's a need for me to spill my thoughts onto this mic, onto this camera, which are the same mic and camera that I started with, by the way. And also very important, if you're not on my Telegram chat, I certainly have more followers than people in my Telegram chat. Please do join. The link is in the show notes, of course. But if you're not there, you may not know, I don't know how else you would know, that my amazing wife, Petra, is pregnant. So this is going to be my 3rd child. And we are very excited. Beyond words. This isn't necessarily why I haven't done anything for almost a month. It's just a matter of circumstance. Sure, it may be part of it, but it's just the way it went. This past month was super crazy. And I had a few minutes to do something here and there, but I didn't think it was going to be what I like to deliver on a regular basis. I make a very large piece of paper with show notes. I follow the path of that. I improvise through it because I'm a musician at heart, and I still, of course, am a teacher. That will never stop. But I didn't think it was going to be up to my own standards, and I don't really just press record every single week at the same time on the same day of the week. It's not how I do it. And I think a lot of you really notice this, that I try to do things my own special way. And I've had a lot of people close to me or not close to me tell me how I should do it, or, hey, if you did it this way, you'd be more popular. It doesn't work for me. It means me compromising. And I'm not a compromiser. Anyone that really knows me personally, I don't do that. I do things my way. Maybe it's because I'm an Aries. Or maybe it's because I am really concerned with my output, whether it be any of the jobs that I've ever had, me as a musician, me as a podcaster. I'm very concerned with my output, and I try to make sure that it's not just me pressing record and going. Even for this one, where I'm not reading anything right now, obviously, but I didn't write too much, but I still have a game plan here. My thoughts are on the page. Now I can bring them to you. Every single time I have an interview, except that one time when I had Meta Soundworks on and he had a topic and he told me he's going to surprise me, I didn't write one thing down. Other than that, even for all of my interviews, I write a general flowchart or more, depending on how I'm feeling. And I give it to them ahead of time so they can see where my mind is as far as how I think the episode might go. Doesn't mean we follow it. And I'm sure, again, that you guys notice this. Hey, leave me a comment. Let me know exactly what you think goes on here at Third Eye Edify. It's a lot. I'm always thinking about this show. I'm always thinking about what to do. And I don't have to put my mind on it. Life keeps throwing it at me. There are a lot of things that I keep my ear to the ground with. Some of them I don't even feel like I should sometimes, but, politics or some nonsense. But it's good to be aware of what's going on, no matter what. I've pushed this idea the entirety of this show. It's not about left or right at all. Red and blue makes purple. Let's be purple. And not in that leadership class kind of way. So, what is in line for this episode? What is this heart to heart? I am not just going to go for it from the hip, improvise this whole thing. I do have something in mind. And I've noticed it in many different ways over the past, let's just say 10 years to be safe, maybe even longer, maybe 20 years. But it's been more profound lately. And it's not necessarily because of COVID. It's not necessarily because of many of the recent events that have been going on. And it's been pretty crazy, no matter what kind of, in quotes, news you follow. And, you can tell that this show is not pigeonholing itself into one thing. Yeah, it's a place for esoteric. Yes, it's a place for news ideas as well. Or, more importantly, alerts. Hey, did you notice this? Maybe you should think about these topics. Because there's certain bits of news that do reveal lots of truth, and it's not about the topics that they're talking. Just as much as any movie or TV show or comic book or anything else, video game, you name it. I've covered a lot of different things, a lot of different topics on this show, and hopefully there's a surprise around every corner, which is kind of the goal. Every so often I have a few episodes in a row that have a topic, but overall, I want this show to be one big surprise to keep you engaged with this and your world, because your world is my world, and our world is crazy and diverse, and no one can know everything. And I guess that's the best part, isn't it? So, what is the topic? What is happening? What have I noticed that I really haven't done anything about yet, episode-wise? Not even in my book have I mentioned this. Or at least I wasn't a big, huge topic with it. Is that things that we grow up with, things that were shown to be used for convenience or just necessities in life, they all seem to be deteriorating at a rapid rate. Would you agree? Let's start with credit cards. I remember so many credit card commercials when I was young. Discover, American Express, Visa, so many commercials. And I always wondered, what the hell is this, And I knew my parents had them, but in the 80s and 90s, well, 90s I was aware, but in the 80s when I was pretty young, it wasn't really clicking yet exactly what a credit card was. This very strange notion of just when I saw cash being handed to someone, they would take it and put it away. Hand in the credit card. Now they use it, they give it back. It was an odd thing to even think about, right? So now I don't watch, cable television, and I don't get a lot of commercials in my life anymore, which is wonderful. So I don't know if they're being advertised as much. I have a feeling they're not. And I have a feeling this obsolescence is by design. Isn't there a term for that? Is it controlled obsolescence, or is it intentional obsolescence? Oh man, I forgot it. I know there's a term. Leave the comment. I can't believe I forgot it. Intentional. They usually discuss the term when you're talking about like cell phone life cycles and stuff, right? Anyway, credit cards. The the advent of the credit card, and I use this term lightly, as I say very often on this show, the evolution of the credit card has moved on from the strip reader. They've always had the number on there. I think that little 3-digit code on the front, or 4-digit code on the 3-digit code on the back, the 4-digit code on the front if you have American Express. I think those CC numbers are a newer thing, maybe like 20-ish, 25 years, but I don't think they were there at first. But there's always that magnetic strip reader where you can actually swipe your credit card. Have you swiped a credit card recently? I think they're doing their best to get rid of that. Big time, right? But now here's my point. This will lead to my other topics. How often has your magnetic strip reader failed you? How often has somebody who, if you even go anywhere that has a cash register employee anymore, they go to swipe it and they can't get it to work and they have to put the number in manually? How often has that happened to you, right? It happens. It happens enough. And if you've worked in retail, which I unfortunately have for many years, thankfully it was a music store for most of that time, but you go to swipe, not working. I can't tell you how many times. But that problem kind of went away. They introduced the tap feature. Tap, a word that in our modern parlance has turned into a sexual term, as a matter of fact. So funny that they would use that, right? Tap the card. The card can be read at any time. This means if someone has a particular kind of device, they can probably read your card in your pocket pretty easily. So what came with that? Again, having been working in retail a long time, two things. First of all, we're getting rid of the magnetic strip because they want it to fail. And this is now here's the final topic. Now here's the actual thing that I wanted to come across with all the topics I'm going to discuss. They want the reader to fail, the magnetic strip to fail, so you can rely on the tap. Then they want the tap to fail so you can rely on getting a freaking chip in your arm, or that you turn actually physically into a number and nothing else. Anyway, cell phones, right? Cell phone's not going to fail you, is it? For more on that, check out my book or check out my previous episodes, particularly my episode called Transformers. Maybe it's episode 9. So now the tap function happens. What happened? What came with that? Let me tell you what came with that. Back in the day, I used to manage a toy store, KB Toys, before they went down hard, and they deserved to, because they didn't know how to treat their employees at all, or their customers. I had to take the credit card, and I would get to see the name on the card. I didn't have to ask for ID. I didn't get a lot of checks even back then. And they're usually from people I knew, or at least I was familiar with. I didn't have to ask for ID. But if I'm handed a card and it says Jennifer, and I've got this dude standing in front of me, or a little kid, now I know that, okay, I have to question whether or not this is this person's credit card, right? At least there was a line of defense from the responsible employee. Now that went away. Tap. Go ahead. Tap. Beep. I don't see anything. I don't do anything. It just works automatically. If the amount is low, they don't even have to put in a PIN number. So any line of defense from fraudulent card activity went away with the tap feature. It's terrible. I thought that was the whole purpose of the credit card, is that you still at least get to retain your safety with it. But that's not what they want, is it? They want credit card usage to be wild. Maybe a topic for another day. So, what else fails? Receipts. How many times have you, and believe me, I pressed no a lot, but recently I've maybe had them for a different reason. How often have you tried to print a receipt at a gas pump? And it says, please go inside for your receipt. Or it thinks it's printing and nothing comes out. This controlled obsolescence, now isn't that the term? Maybe it is always on purpose. And you should think about every single thing in this light, I think. I promote this on my show. I think Every little tiny thing is on purpose and done to control you, and is controlled with a purpose, with a goal. The less confidence you have in receipts, the more you're going to want them to just be emailed or stored in some very special, specific, all-in-one database, which really is going to get to the heart of everything, because the Everything app is definitely on the horizon. And we need to be aware of this as much as possible. So receipts failing, it's another one. It's another way to get you convinced that you need a better system, one that you can rely on more. Not emails. Most people check their emails every day, I would say, which is still amazing to me. But think about that. It's all part of that one universal everything. Again, the Everything app. Everything done in one very convenient and simple place for you to store every single thing, so they can store every single thing. Paper money, paper receipts, they don't want that at all. And they definitely don't want cash. Now that comes back to COVID. Once COVID hit, a lot of places didn't want to touch money because it was covered in viruses and bacteria and germs. Germs, invisible enemies that you can never see or prove. Just another theory. So cash suddenly disappears, and yet it's still very strong. Now, another thing that, it's not controlled obsolescence, but computers versus cell phones. They have done their best to convince you that you don't need a computer. You don't need a hard drive to store your stuff. You don't need a keyboard to input things very easily. Most kids have no idea how to type, something I've definitely brought up on this show before. If they do, they're very slow at it, or maybe they're doing what old people used to do. Old people, right? Oh, look at this old man typing chicken type. No, kids are doing that now because of cell phones. And it's not necessarily that thumbs do all the work. Something that was probably brought on by video games, as a matter of fact. And I think I've got a whole episode about that coming. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make that note right now because I've got a bunch of things that you don't see here waiting for me to, find them. Thumbs as input, as main input. When you use a keyboard, you're using your whole hand. When you use a Nintendo controller, you're just using your thumbs. Even a PlayStation controller, you might use these two, but you're pretty much just using thumbs and pointers. This is not utilizing your whole hand, and it actually creates stress in a certain way. I deal with RSIs, repeated stress injuries, as a bass guitar instructor. When you do an entire show, how many times do you think this happens? Thousands? Yeah, actually. So repeated stress injuries can happen. Video game players have this all the time. And ones that try to compete at a high level, they have to deal with injuries. They have to deal with adjusting their technique so they don't hit so hard, so they don't screw their hands up, because using only a certain part of your hands and the rest just grip, it's not what we're meant to do. Cell phones produce the same thing. You get used to typing with your thumbs. Then, of course, that isn't so great. It's obviously not convenient. It's obviously not as good as a keyboard. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Just use your voice. The voice recognition is here. And it can work perfectly. It's just what you need. So again, by things becoming obsolete, it's easier for them to bring in these new convenient things, but then it turns into this whole control grid. They're constantly analyzing your voice. You feel like you don't even want the other stuff. It's useless now. Look how it's been on decline. Oh, I'm so glad this new technology's here. New technology, like anything's new. This is old stuff. This is easy stuff. We're still dealing with binary language. Very, very simple stuff. Now, what else is failing you lately? Hit any potholes lately? Man, when I lived in New York, I sure hit a lot of potholes. Now, here in Kentucky, they seem to be repairing things often. It's very nice to see, but most side roads don't have anything past the line which is very different from New York, I must say, where you have to drive perfectly on the road or you're actually going to fall to your death. It's pretty crazy. And it's nice, actually, because you get to see some nice scenes in the side roads, nice scenery. But I still don't get a bunch of potholes. I would slam into humongous potholes all the time in super rich, affluent Long Island, New York, where I was constantly asked where I would go for winter, as if I didn't live there and as if I had another house somewhere else. So infrastructure is failing, it is crumbling, and it has everything to do with a lot of was promoted in this wonderful new documentary that absolutely has to be watched. Old World Order, I think it was called. Michelle Gibson, a few other people. It's one of the most important things that's been released in a long time. Definitely check it out. Michelle Gibson's name came up. I just interviewed Stephanie McPeterson. It's an incredible interview that you have to watch. And she's talking to her. Just an incredible pool of people that is coming into my life because of this show. And what's still standing is the stuff that is supposedly very, very old and much older than they're letting us know. It's the reason why there is very out-of-place architecture in major cities. It's the reason why all of it looks like it's from Rome or Greece or wherever, Egypt. Why is it here? Was it here first? Oh, we got plenty to talk about there. And we will, as a matter of fact. So infrastructure is failing and is crumbling. And it's giving people a reason to want what? To not leave the house. Everything's home. You can do everything from home. You can shop in your underwear. Remember that advertisement? Yeah. You can do whatever you want from home. Why bother leaving? You can work from home now too. I do with my teaching a lot, actually. But it's the nature of the beast. And it helps me stay with my kids a lot. So everything can be done from home now. And with the gig economy, with deliveries and other things, you can still get the things of the outside world. You just got to use your cell phone. You just need a cell phone. Because who orders an Uber driver from their computer, right? You get your cell phone. You use your cell phone. So infrastructure failing by design. Highways not lasting more than 2 years before they're just a disaster that needs to be repaired. And then you're sitting in traffic and then you're late to work. And then you're like, why can't I do everything from home? Again, failing infrastructure, controlled obsolescence gets you to want the other things that they want you to need suddenly, so that they can do more of their control grid, so that they can make sure that you use more of what they want you to use. It's very simple. So what else? What else is failing? Airplanes? Let's not even talk about rockets, because I don't even think those things are even anything but balloons to begin with half the time. Airplanes. Have you been seeing what's been going on with Boeing lately? Where a whistleblower was suddenly suicided when he was about to testify against Boeing for all of this incredible news coverage about failing airplanes. Doors blasting off, thousands of feet in the air, landing gear, all kinds of trouble. I've flown a few times recently, and everyone else I know that's flown recently has sat in their airplane waiting for takeoff for 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes. Airplanes can't be on time anymore. What has changed? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps they're just, again, creating a problem that doesn't exist so that you don't want to fly anymore. Flying lets you see sights you haven't seen or don't commonly see. It lets you see our realm from angles that you would normally never see. And I think that's one very, very, very big part of it. They do have windowless airplanes ready to go. And that's, again, tip of the iceberg on this conversation. And I've discussed it before here, as a matter of fact. In an episode called This Time They've Crossed the Line. I would definitely check that one out. It's an exclusive short for a number of reasons. Too hot for YouTube. So you can find that on my Patreon. And it's also, if you're a Rockfin subscriber, it's also there. This is just another way for you to think that maybe I don't want to fly anymore, or boy, I should really stay home. Now, the final topic here in this heart to heart, that is coming from a place of so much appreciation for all of you. I thank you again, really. If you're not on my Patreon, please do join. You can be a free member and use it just like you would use any other place that you watch my shows. It also has access to podcasts format. So you can listen or you can watch. Everything that I have for free is available on Patreon in what I consider to be a very good player. As a matter of fact, it works really well. It works better than Rockfin. It certainly possibly works better than Rumble, which seems to be failing every so often. And it's as good as YouTube. And maybe YouTube flows a little smoother in certain areas with less service. But overall, it's pretty great. And my point is, you don't have to pay to be on my Patreon. And I would really love if I could get more people on there, just so I can see the support level. Because Patreon is a lot more direct for me overall. I'm not even talking financially. I'm just saying at a direct level of seeing who's really interested in being my supporter. Rockfin, I got 1,500 followers. I don't know any of them. And YouTube is just a dead end street for me. So join me there. And if you're interested, you can, of course, pay for my Patreon and get my exclusives. There are a few pricing options. But what is the final topic now? What else is failing on purpose? Presidents. I think everyone watching this show already knows what I mean. And if you know somebody who doesn't, send me their way, please. Or send them my way, I should say. Because that would greatly help the cause here. So we don't live in an echo chamber. The most important thing about this, whatever you want to call it, people are calling it truth movement. I mean, it's news. It's a show. And TV shows are definitely failing on purpose. So there's a need for what I'm doing in a certain way. And I say that only in a perspective as a viewer of other shows. But most importantly, the word's got to get out somehow that alternative media exists and it is thriving and it is being done by people with a lot of passion and talent and maybe not a budget, not a big one. So, because, my goal is to hire people and have them on the third eye Edify payroll. I want this to become something humongous. I really do. And it's already here, so it will manifest. But until then, presidents are failing. Watching even 2 minutes of anything from Joe Biden makes it look like it's not good. Now, I don't give a shit about the left or right at all. And I'm going to have episodes, probably more than one, about how little confidence I have in and how much passion I have towards you not even daring to consider voting, because it is one of the stupidest things they've ever convinced us to do. And of course, that you don't need to leave the house for that apparently anymore either, right? This is not about any of that stuff. This is about I live in the United States, and most of my fans do, but not all of them. If I were on the outside looking in, if I were looking at this person that is supposed to be our president, I would be extremely worried for us, and I would also be extremely sad and I would find it very comical that they're daring to even pass this person off as a leader. He really, on camera, he's barely able to speak. His mouth is wide open. He looks like he's a deer in headlights. Then we've got the other dude, 45th president, about to become the 47th president, probably. That's 9 and 11, by the way. Mentioned that in the past. Just an actor? I don't even know what to call. I don't even know what to call him at this point. Bottom line is this: the world is truly, finally, just accepting the reality. We are a laughingstock, and anyone that believes what they're seeing on mainstream news, they're unfortunate. And to quote Ursula from The Little Mermaid, they're poor, unfortunate souls. For real. It is not healthy to be aligned or to even bother considering any of that stuff to be real. The overall image that's passed along, the overall consensus is that the US is crumbling and has been for a very, very, very long time. Now, financially, this is a reality for most people because even if nothing's changed for you financially, you get your typical once a year raise. Suddenly you realize 2 years later, you're like, I can't even afford anything anymore. Everything's slowly creeping up cost-wise. So, it's tougher to do anything. And it's a manufactured result. This isn't the natural course of anything. Empires apparently rise and fall. What did I see? Some commercial about prices. Prices, like empires, rise and fall. And I was thinking to myself, what a morbid, awful thing to even bother saying as an advertisement to make something look appealing, right? But that's not appropriate for human nature. We're supposed to constantly become more. We're supposed to make our offspring are supposed to take what we figure out and make it more and do more with it and then give more to their offspring. And we're supposed to constantly get better and better and better as humans. And what we've been provided with in the past 50, 60 years is the opposite. And if we're looking at the past 100, 120 years, with all these wars getting in the way of any kind of growth, there's no chance. With all these central banks doing their best to keep us down, there's no chance. Another reason why I say don't even bother thinking about voting. It's not going to do anything. So this little rant here is me just spilling my thoughts on how easy it is to manipulate an entire culture through controlled obsolescence. Now that I have the term under control, I can use it appropriately. It's so easy to have people convinced that they need the next thing when the thing they thought they needed is quickly declining right in front of them, even if it is a human being like a president. So keep your ears to the ground and keep your eyes on the horizon, because there are some major shifts coming before this year is over, and next year is sure to be a banger. So definitely, keep these things in mind, because I care a lot. And it's not just about the fact that I'm a parent. It's the fact that I'm a human being, and I'm thoroughly aware of it. I am flawed and fallible. It's a quote Beowulf. I am flawed and fallible, like everyone else. And it's easy to forget that, because we're always so bombarded with things that we need to do all the time. This show is part of that need for me to kind of come full circle where I started here. So I hope that you appreciate it at a different level today. Because, me personally watching, let's say, like Last American Vagabond, Interverse, you forget that this is a human being on the other side. And we're not looking at it like creating a product. It's not that for the very best. It's not. They're just doing what they do and happen to be pressing record, much like The Last American Vagabond, Interverse. These are the kinds of good-natured souls that really do want to bring something special every time they press record. And they do, in very different ways. And I want to be the same. And I'm trying my best to do that with the time that I have. So bear with me as the channel grows. Because that's all that's going to happen. It's inevitable. And I've got some pretty amazing guests lined up. I think none of you might know any of them. So it's going to be pretty cool to introduce them to you. And you may know one or two of them from other shows, but they haven't been on those shows in a while. I think it's time to bring them on this show. So spread the love. Spread the awareness. Awareness is love, by the way, because as we often get shut down as conspiracy theorists or whatever for just mentioning a simple thought, you are actually reaching someone when you do that. They're just in that matrix, deflection mode that they're trained to be in. But anyone that's like that, we were that way too, weren't we? So it's very easy to forget that there's a line that you finally were able to get past. And just because that person isn't the same person anymore, it doesn't mean you weren't like that person. So just keep doing it. Keep passing whatever messages along that you possibly can to anyone that needs to hear it. Friends and family they'll cancel you. I'm very lucky to not have that issue. Maybe it has to do with the fact that neither of my parents were even born in this country, so they're more open-minded in certain directions. But thankfully, most of my friends and all of my family are still right in line with me being a crazy person. So I don't have anything but cheers to that. And please leave a comment. Let me know, what you think about this little show here. And I can't wait to bring you lots more, like I always have been, essentially once a week. And until then, thank you so much. And I'll see you next time.